so satisfying. We got sludge. We got sludge in the pond. Hey guys, welcome to another episode where we work on our delicious trout pond full of delicious trout. We got some algae problems and I've got a solution. So join me on this episode where we deal. Oh, there's Clark's spent. I can't believe it. I hope you guys saw that. That was the giant male just swam by. Holy, our Bass Pro Shops food plot. Probably anywhere here is fine. Get the goop out. There we go, look at that. Looks like baby poop. We got algae. Let's see if this sprouts up our food plot. Oh, so satisfying. Alright, so we've got some problems at the ponds. Ponds always have problems, and there's always a solution to the pond. So we've got something here from Nature's Pond Care. It's a Condor product. This is a beneficial concoction of enzymes and healthy bacteria, and it's going to consume our pond sludge. So we've got dead decaying material that's going to come from the fish that we put in, the feed that's not being used. The fish are not super productive. Well, they're pretty productive. They only convert 70% of all the feed that you put in there. The rest they poop out, kind of like people.
Is that all natural?
This is all 100% natural. You can swim in it as soon as you put in. You can catch the fish as soon as you put it in.
So it's like magic.
Well, hopefully. We're going to find out. So we've also got a dye. We're not going to put the dye in today. They told us the best way to do this is leave it 1 or 2 weeks to let the conditioner, the pond conditioner, do its work, and then we can color the pond. This is a food grade dye. All of these products, I should say that one too, the fall, it's all natural, and it's all, you don't have to wait, you don't have to worry. You know, you can eat the fish straight away. So you can dump this in and then eat the fish. You can dump it in and go swimming. You can dump it in and your pets can presumably drink out of the water, although that's not super healthy to begin with, but they can do that.
It's not like shocking your pool, right? It's like,
no, it's all natural, and that's the benefit of using this Nature's Pond Care product. Oh! All right. Oh, nice, right on my sock, beauty. Now, if you want something to do, this is definitely something to do. Whether it's a productive use of time or not, I don't know. Mostly feels like I'm pulling up water. This stuff's so just right full of water. Reduces algae, weeds naturally, all in one color, cleans and clears. You don't need anything else. So we're just give it a good shake. And then we're gonna try to get ourselves over our Condor's aerator over here, if we can. We're gonna try to put in half of this. Well, that's a dent, I guess. Look at that. Delicious. I wonder if that would be any good for a garden fertilizer. Those aerators are working good. I fired up this other one. This is a battery powered one. Wanted to make sure it was running all right. We set that up a while ago, so it runs off of a EcoFlow battery and it's charged by solar up at the front. So it's mostly set to be running at night. This one's running off the solar there, so you've got a choice. They both blow about the same amount of air. That's a very, very small unit, very affordable. The solar is a fair amount more expensive, so it's up to you what you decide to do. And then we've got the Condor's windmill over there, but the air is so still in the summer. I think it's really only going to work in the spring and fall. There we go. We'll let that Nature's Pond Care do its job. Well, it's been about a week or so. We're told to give it 2 weeks, but I thought I would do an update anyway. Water clarity has improved quite a bit, but the amount of algae is on the top. It looks like it's about the same. It also concentrating because the water volume is not as it was before, because it hasn't done what I hoped it was going to do. When I add the rest of the bottle, they did tell us to use the entire bottle based on the volume, 80,000 gallons in this pond. And I've got another special tool I bought today to kind of deal with the algae. In she goes. Let's see how that does. You see it's got a pretty sweet green tint right now. You find if you put it too close to the aerator, it just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. So we gotta unspin them. Is that getting worse or better? Feels like it's getting worse. That's under the fish jam. The fish jam we haven't, the trout jam we haven't seen too much of lately. The other heron hasn't bothered to come out here. That's from Cabela's Bass Pro Shops. It's a decoy people normally use for ducks. Duck hunting, because it makes obviously the wildlife, the ducks feel at ease. And then we've got our other wood ducks here, and they're just guarding our pumps. So if we want to pull our pumps up, we can. But otherwise it looks good. The water levels are not too bad. We're at about the level that we should be at. We're down about a foot, but not too bad. Our Bass Pro Shops food plot's coming in really nice too. It's almost a shame to be walking on it, but I got to get over here. It's coming up lush and green. Always fun to feed the fish. We're gonna go light right now because it's pretty hot. It's been hot all week. We want to do evenings only. Evenings and mornings. It is afternoon here right now. But we'll toss it into the shade here. And we should get a good reaction as long as their fish have lots of oxygen and they got good water quality, and a good temperature. And I would say, yeah, they are doing just fine. Well, if I'm being honest, I never know how much footage to include of fish feeding. I find this the absolute 100% most satisfying part of owning a pond. Don was out there, who that's Kevin's helper from Modern Self-Reliance, and he helped me cover this footage with the GoPro. I could do some underwater stuff, and he could get some good pellet action throwing in for me at the same time. And he said, you know, at the end of feeding the fish, you haven't done much, but you really feel like you've accomplished something. It's just something about seeing wildlife come to an area that was never there before and having them be there so successfully, and to see them actually thrive in that environment. So I'm going to spoil you and spoil me, and it's always good to and nice to have this for posterity, just to see where we're at in the pond cycle. This is mid-June, and you can see that the fish are doing really well. And as time goes on and that Nature's Pond Care conditioner is working, the algae situation is ameliorating, is getting better. There's a slight tinge of green, but as the pond turns over, there will be other creatures that will take care of the algae. And as the temperature and sun dissipates throughout the summer, they will be getting a little bit less sunlight. Ideally, we would have a little bit more shade, but the sun is only on the pond for the midday hours. It would be more ideal to have it in the evening and morning hours, but that's the situation that we're in right now. We do have the benefit of having the sun around so that we can collect it for powering the aerators, and so you can't have the best of everything. We do try to set the stage for success, and we have planted some trees around the edge that will grow up and help shade the edges of the pond as time goes on. But you can see these fish are happy and healthy. The water clarity is a lot better than it was last year. It is not perfect, but we will work on a couple of projects later in this video, which will show you me taking your advice to add some aquatic plants. And it turned out to be quite an extensive project, but I think you guys will find it super interesting, and maybe someday you guys will be able to incorporate that into your pond projects. There's the big one right there. I think that might be Lois taking a drive by. I hope she's feeding. I don't know if she's feeding. That's the thing. It's hard to see her come up and grab food. She's not as aggressive as the other ones. There she goes, right over there. I actually got 3/4. I'm a sucker. I like to watch them feed. 3/4 all at the same time. The sun's out, so they might not hit these as hard, plus they've already eaten once. Look at them go. It's voracious. So the goal from this pond was to actually be able to bowfish them. Last year, they were so bad, you couldn't spot a fish anywhere at all below the surface. Now I see about 3 feet down, which I think is a big success. We like to see those fish come up and feed, but then we want to see them go back down in the cool waters. So here's my super special tool. It's gonna hopefully make a big dent on this. So I've got it extended. It actually goes twice as long as this, so I should be able to reach every part of the pond now. Actually, that's not too bad. It filters out a lot of the water. And then we're just going to dump it up on shore. It's not going to get rid of the problem necessarily, but it's going to accelerate getting rid of the problem. And that's really the idea here. I've done this on a larger scale in a larger pond. You see how this stuff just slops out. You see how this is much more tedious than just dumping the pond conditioner in, but we want to help it along as much as we can. There, made a pretty good dent on things. If you know the life cycle of algae, it basically lives in the water, eats stuff, floats up to the top, dies, and then sinks back down, and it just kind of keeps going like that. So any nutrients you can pull out, any seed algae you can take off is obviously going to be a benefit. I didn't get everything. As you can tell, it's impossible to get everything because it's dispersed throughout the water column. So that's where the nature's pond care enzyme and beneficial bacteria comes into play, because it's going to start eating the stuff that's in there. We've got a pretty darn good bloom happening here, and I'm not really sure exactly how it starts, if it's just like the nutrients from the fish and in the water and all that stuff. But I mean, this is all fresh water from this year, and it's not coming from runoff, it's coming from pure springs. So obviously there's enough nitrogen in there to create quite a bit of damage. It's not bad for the fish, but it's not great either, and it's obviously pretty unsightly, and it can choke off the whole top, in which case it's going to be hard to feed the fish because the feed floats. Gonna do a little bit of trail maintenance. We got the Woodsman's Pal here. Probably put a link in the description. It's a pretty interesting tool. You see what it looks like. I'm gonna put some gloves on here because I got to do some trail maintenance. I'm probably gonna get absolutely mauled by mosquitoes, but we're gonna give it a go here. If we keep this open, then the deer will keep using it, and when hunting season rolls around, we'll be able to get to the back quieter. But this is where the deer sign starts to show up. I see some tracks over here, but I do want to encourage them to walk through there. I don't know if you can see, but right there is a tree stand. So if I can get them to walk through that tall grass, I can pick them off. Whew! The mosquitoes are terrible in here. There's the bed there, and there's a bed over here as well. You see there's the bed there for a fawn. Oh. Let's see what we got. There's a deer. We're going to give a test of the water temperature. Trout are a cold water species and like cold. So, I say the colder the better, but definitely not the warmer the better, that's for sure. There's a certain level of tolerance that trout will put up with, and after that it's bad news. So let's do air temperature would be, say, 27, and that's about 80 Fahrenheit or so. We'll toss that in there, and then after we get a few fish, we'll double check on that temperature. Well, it's been 2 weeks. I am going to grab some food out of the pond in just a second, but I wanted to give you guys an update on the Nature's Pond Care conditioner. It is hard to tell if there's a big difference. It rained for the last 3 days, and every time it rains, it seems like this thing silts up. It's not as bad as last year, but I think a lot of the silt from the clay is mixing with the algae, and so it's making it more opaque. Also, I think there's a little bit of pond dye in the conditioner itself, so it's changed the colors. So we don't have a good side-by-side comparison. Well, I do notice, as far as the algae goes, the big clumps that were here, they're all gone. Like, there used to be tons and tons of big clumps. So I'm guessing that the fact that it's not super ultra clear is mostly because it rained so much in the last few days, and that's silted everything up, because it looks like the green color minus all that algae on the edges, and there's like always a green tinge to this water anyway. So I think the Nature's Pond Care actually did a pretty good job. That's the goal. We got a ton of fish in there, so we don't want to wait till the very last moment and have hundreds of trout and don't have to cast too far, because the fish should be active everywhere. Let's try over here. There's lots of fish. There's always kind of one active. Ooh, look at the tadpoles getting a lot bigger in here now. I like hanging out here in the shallow part. It's a little tricky to see my fly on the water with the condor's air going, but I can actually see it right there. If the fly doesn't work, we'll have to go to the spin tackle. Oh, there's a fish right there. That was not on the surface though. That was, oh, we got to keep it away from, ooh, keep it away from the duck. I don't know if this fish thinks it's hooked yet. I was using it more as a streamer there. Oh, it's a big one too. Oh! I got to keep it away from the ducks because, as you guys may or may not know, they are anchored down to the bottom here. So we're going to play this fish out. Oh, stay away from that. Oh, there we go. It's a perfect eater size here. We can get him in. There we go. Beauty. Check out that trout. What a beauty. Wow, that's great. Look at that fish. Beauty. Good hook right in the lip there. Whew. Well, he's not going back in the water. That guy is going to be our food here. Look at that. What a beautiful fish. Perfect size eater. You guys should get yourself a pond put together too. Linden Trout Hatchery. You can pick these fish up whatever size you want, pretty much. There we go. If you've been following my channel for long enough, you know that I've got this little cooler. It's my ice fishing cooler, but it's also a fish tackle box for me. And I just recently upgraded. I got a Cabela's version, brand spanking new, and I even picked up this really cool compact micro tool. It's a macro tool, so I'll have that with me all the time. I'll always have pliers and a knife handy, so that can go in the front pouch here. And then I've got all my extra fishing gear. I got lots of dry flies here, wet flies, and then my ice fishing bells, and then some spare hooks, treble hooks, sinkers, another set of dry flies here, or wet flies. I think those are my wet flies. My streamers. I got some trout eggs. Those are always handy because you can have them with you, so it's kind of like a survival emergency thing. They stay good for a long time, preserved. And then we got some fire bait. It's like a dough bait. It's always handy. Got a thermometer because trout only bite at a certain temperature. And I've got my fish stringer, which is going to come in handy today. I'm going to keep this because it's lasted so dang long. I've had this since I was a kid. It's lasted years and years and years and years. So we'll see how this new one fares. It's got a good, nice, heavy-duty zipper on there. I think that will get it down a little deeper. Like, spooked fish don't like to come up to the surface. So just got that with a split shot. Oh, there, oh, that was the trick. Did you see that fish? He swooped in twice. So I think if we pause at the end, wouldn't that be something if we caught Lois here? Seeing the reaction on that fish on the first cast, I'm I'm guessing it's not going to take too many passes through here before we grab one. Try one over this way. Oh, there's this. There it is. Oh, oh. You guys see that jump? Holy smokes. Oh, because these guys are pellet fed mostly, they've got some spunk. Airborne. Yowzers. All right, let's get him in here. Well, the other ones think there's feed here. Well, let's get him up because he's not doing so good here now. I don't want to lose him. Oh, that's a good size one too. Yeah, we did foul hook him. Oh, anybody doubting on how healthy these fish are, don't have to doubt them. Look at that beautiful colors on him. Two delicious fish. Lovely. Here we go. Let those guys sit, do their job. Curious actually if they're eating anything besides the fish pellets. So we're gonna check the stomachs here. We've got the stomach, it's the big chunky bit here, and it's actually quite full. Feed. That's all feed. We'll probably start to taper off the feeding program. And then whatever fish are left, get food. Actual food. So you guys have been bugging me, and rightfully so, for a long time to get aquatic plants in to deal with the excess nitrogen. So here we go. We got 3 pool noodles and a kid-sized pool. This is about a 4-foot round. You can use whatever size that you want. And I'm going to start first by punching a bunch of holes in the bottom. Next we have the geotextile. You can use probably some landscape fabric for this portion of it. But the main idea is that you don't want any soil that you put into the bottom of this to be seeping out into the pond. You want to be able to keep it in there. So I'm cutting out a generous sized portion, put it down on the bottom, and then to hold it in place, add some pea gravel. Now this pea gravel is going to end up being a little bit of my nemesis, as you'll see, but every project is kind of a learning process. So now we're going to add the pool noodles. The pool noodles are going to provide flotation. Since we've punched holes in the bottom, it will leak up through the geotextile, and it will tend to make it sink, but we do want to provide a little bit of buoyancy because we don't want this to sink all the way down to the bottom. And we're threading a piece of wire here through the pool noodle. You could split the pool noodles in half and add a ratchet strap, or you could put some string through there. On the second go around, which you'll see as this project develops, I used an arrow and I attached a piece of string through it with a little bit of electrical tape, and then I pushed that through the pool noodle, and that worked rather well. And the next thing is just to fasten the pool noodle using some holes and some zip ties, just to get the bend of the pool noodles to hold to the pool itself and cinch it together, and working around one section at a time. I found it a little bit tricky to use just the wire because the pool noodles, want to go back to straight even if you try to bend them. So I'm getting them all fastened around the lower edge of the lip of the pool, and then you can see now we've folded the material back over top of the noodle and then back onto the inside of the pool, and then we put the pea gravel over top of the excess. So that'll make a nice clean seam that won't be visible once we add the plants. And so the idea, as you can see, is it's going to be a floating mat of whatever aquatic plants we want to add. And this is because we don't want the plants to just spread willy-nilly across the whole pond, choking it up, such as if we added lily pads. And this will be able to move around in theory without sinking across the whole end of the pond, and will function as a vacuum to suck up all of the excess nitrogen so that it doesn't become feed for the algae. And as you'll see, there's quite a few things you have to adjust in order for this to work properly and for it not to sink. right, we're gonna get to our neutral buoyancy now before we add our plants, because obviously it's gonna be hard to do after. A little low on that side, a little high on that side. If I'm going to recommend this, you probably want like 4 crappy pools put together.
Yeah, it might still. Well, once it's, I think it's a lot stabler.
I don't know if we need all of it or not. Oh my gosh, what's so wrong with this thing? Again. Oh man, I don't think there's any rocks in there at all. I'm going to add a couple of little ones here and there just to hold the geo down while we get everything else situated in there. Oh, the deer started using my trail since I was out here last. Well, we'll get some water tolerant plants anyway. It likes to live in swampy water. I'm hoping it likes to live in like pond water too, because that's where we're putting it. So the moisture level will be a little bit higher than here. It gets shaded out here, so it'll get a better life probably in the pond. And there's no shortage of it. But I gotta get enough that I can fill up that entire container. I gotta cover 4 square feet of this, and this is about maybe 1 or 2 square feet. All right, so it doesn't matter if there's a little bit of soil in here and not pea gravel, because the geotextile won't allow that stuff to come through at all. It's meant to hold the substrate back but let the nutrients flow into, so it's going to work like a sponge to absorb all that nitrogen. So that's a pretty good dent. It's probably not as much as I thought. Oh, that's a heavy one. Oh, nothing here. The only ones I know about are way that way. Oh, okay, here we go. Maybe we're a third there now. Like I say, we're gonna find out if it's gonna tolerate all that moisture in there. It does in the spring anyway. If you're planning on doing this pond project, I would highly recommend you start off small. Of course, I started off big. Go big or go home, but that put me in a place where I was slaving over this basically for 5 hours because I had to source the materials really far away from the project. I thought there was some stuff closer. It just happened not to be. If you can pick it up by car, I would highly recommend you do that. But I will provide instructions for a much smaller project along the same lines. So keep watching. It's in this video, and it's a much simpler way to start this. But being stubborn, there's no way I'm going to let failure get in the way of my success. So I persist and I do get it done. So this plant here is a marsh marigold. It's an edible plant. So if it sticks around all till spring, we can eat the leaves here. The last time I ate it, it wasn't particularly good, but you can see it's serrated and it shoots up a beautiful yellow spring flower. If you watch for it, you can find it in very swampy areas, so it should be very water tolerant. Well, I don't know if I would do it this big again, but that's 4 feet circumference or something like that. It's a miniature big kiddie pool. It's not the smallest one they make, but it's not the biggest one. That was a ton of work. You see, it's a nice big bowl of salad. The only problem with it is it doesn't float. So it's going to be sucking moisture up from the bottom here up to the top until I can figure out the flotation situation. A lot of the materials I picked up for this project for Princess Auto. So another trip to the store, got some pool noodles and some paracord. This time I grabbed the giant sized pool noodles, the adult sized pool noodles, and did another run. You can see I used the arrow to push it through, and then there was just a matter of cinching it around the outside. And the idea is you don't want this thing to tip over and have your salad end up in your pond and disperse everywhere, because that's going to be more problem than it's worth. So let's see if it floats now. So the first noodle was just like the baby noodle, that's the 2" and a bit, and now we got the 3" and a bit. So we've got a 2" and a bit and a 3" and a bit, and we've got like 200 pounds of stuff in here. So hopefully that, I just don't want it to tip over. If it tips over, everything goes in, and then the whole project's done.
I would let it fill up first.
Well, looks good so far.
Don't let it go. Does look good so far.
It's a little low on this side. This was 5 hours of work to get this set up. A lot longer than I thought. Well, I thought it would be a couple of hours, but I didn't think it would be this many hours. I had some variety plants. We got some moss in there. We got some ferns in there. We got marsh marigolds, the predominant one. This should fill in. There's probably some grasses, some other stuff. So it can do the work and suck up all the nitrogen. So unless you've got a giant, massive pond, kind of like I do compared to the kiddie pool, this is the size that I would recommend that you try, like on a miniature pool. This is a 2.5 gallon pail. It's not as deep as the 5 gallon. I don't know, it's somewhere between the small version and the large version of the pail department. And I'm basically going to do the same thing, punch holes in the bottom, and then I've used my arrow to thread a piece of paracord through. And this time you only need 1 pool noodle to go around the 5 gallon. It's actually a little bit long, so it has to be trimmed. And then it's a lot of fiddling around. I ended up using a couple of zip ties to get it held in place before I could cinch tight the paracord. And then I'm doing this a little bit different than the other one, and I'm folding the geotextile around, untucking it up underneath the pool noodle instead. And for this project, you will actually need a little bit of pea gravel or some stone or some gravel of any kind or sort, because you'll want to get that balance set up properly. So it's just a matter of getting it to be neutrally buoyant, and then you don't want it to be tipping over at all. And then just test to see how much gravel you need to keep in the bottom of it to keep it from spilling over. You can see this is a lot easier. The ratio from pool noodle to pail is a lot better, and this is the adult size pool noodle as well, which I would recommend. And then from there, just let it fill up and see how it sits. The geotextile is obviously the preferred fabric. It's a lot more durable, and it will let the nutrients flow up through the bottom, but I think you could use landscape fabric as well. Well, as you can see, all of the surface algae is all gone. There's still a tinge in the water. Obviously it's still kind of opaque. There is a bit of a green to it. So we're gonna do the next step here, which is all over my hands. I kind of spilled some, depriving the algae of any sunlight. If we had a bit more shade to work with, we could stop the algae from feeding and photosynthesizing. So we're gonna dump this in. This is food grade dye, the Nature's Pond Care blend. We're gonna go over the aerator, and we're gonna get that all dumped in there. It's gonna make the water a nice blue color. Look at that go in. And then that's gonna provide shelter, shade, and then the algae is not gonna be able to proliferate. And that in combination with our plants, we should be in good shape. It's going to take a bit to get used to this color. It's much more blue than it was before. It used to be a tinge of green, but that changed it a lot. So as things dissipate, this will kind of take off as well. It's not going to stay here forever, right? And we'll see what damage it does to the algae. The downside, of course, as you can tell, is that it reduces the visibility, so we can't actually see any of the fish anymore. But it should kill off of the algae and then bring it back. And then in the meantime, we'll have our water plants doing the work. I'll get another set of plants. I'm thinking some arrowhead plants because it's another edible, another wild edible. So it kind of has a dual purpose. Made this other little one. The white is a little bit unsightly, but once it gets in the water, I don't think you'll be able to see it. So I'll have to go collect some arrowroot or arrowhead at another location. We'll throw that in. So looks like it's off to a good start. We've got the cattails. Those will keep spreading and forming over there in the shallow end. and there's some other water plants forming on the other edge as well. And then as the cattails get established, they'll spread all the way across the shallow and all the way, as long as we don't continue to disturb it. And the marsh marigold is something that we can eat next spring if it lasts that long. And then the arrowhead root is something I always wanted to look at. Maybe it'll be ready to harvest in the fall, but I'll do that on another video. So that's it. Check out Nature's Pond Care. They got a bunch of cool pond products. They got the conditioner, they got the dye, they got the spring, summer, and fall for treatments, or summer, fall. I forget what it is. I think the spring and the summer are both the same. But I'm not sure. You guys can double check that, see what product is right for you. So the fish aren't biting today. It's not the hot spot here. So after dyeing the water perfectly blue and probably messing up any chances of catching a fish, because the fish aren't going to be able to see a lure, I gave the rod to my dad because he was up for a visit. Thought it would be fun for him to catch a fish and do a fresh fish fry. But after warning him about all the different places he might get snagged, including the line from the ducks running down to the bottom, the aerators, and the fish jam, as well as the rocky shoreline, he had a little bit more frustration than success.
I don't know. What's going on here? Oh no. What is that? Sinker caught on it? Or am I snagged? It's because I didn't start reeling right away?
Well, you can't hit the bottom because it's rock.
Well. Yeah, I won't do that I'm not going to do this anymore. This is the last chance.
So after losing a couple lures to the bottom of the pond and my dad exhausting all of his limits on frustration, I took over and spent about 20 minutes trying to catch a trout. So I'll note that probably added a little bit too much of the pond dye and reduced the visibility too drastically, so the fish actually couldn't see the lure being moved through. I think a worm would still work, but just note if you use the conditioner to go light on it and then add more as necessary. You can see the pond is a deep blue, and this isn't going to affect the edibility of the fish, but obviously the visibility has been drastically reduced. I did manage to catch a small trout and wanted to let it go, but it didn't take well, so I managed to beach it back, and we'll eat this one. We never planned for the pond to be catch and release. It was always catch and keep. So once this fish swam back to shore, it became lunch. Do what it does.
It smells delicious already. This is adobo. This is my brother's special spice.
One fish. The fish actually started feeding because they figured out that surf on top of the water to look at the feed, because that pond dye blocked everything out. Well, my mouth is watering, so I'm gonna grab a piece there.
There you go.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Dig in.
Like, Don and Dad can grab something. It's the rare. It's the same shot. Here, I can. I'll flip myself around. There. I didn't get any bones. That's my biggest fear, is getting a fish bone stuck in my throat.
Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys on the next time.